Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Y-Whales, wherever in the world you are today. So today is, it's September 15th. It is Ethereum Merge Day. We have successfully, crossed the Rubicon. We've gone from proof of work to proof of stake. And it was really boring. There was nothing to it. The weeks and months of drama and FUD and, the world's going to explode. Nothing's going to work. I mean, I think we talked more about ETH POW than we did talk about ETH because we're all so convinced. Technically, no one I didn't find a single person that said technically the ETH conversion's not going to work. We all knew this has been done. It's been tested. The eyes are on it. And it went flawless. Congratulations to the team. The concern we had was what's the PR fallout? What's that DApp that nobody has updated in 2 years that is somehow being used by the oracles that's just going to fail. And to date, I haven't heard anything, and maybe you have, but we've been quite looking, and it just seems like other than there's a lot of GPUs for sale on eBay today, that's been the biggest repercussion that we've seen from this. And Vitalik himself claims, and I don't know if it's valid, a 0.2 reduction in global energy usage from this change. That's a significant number. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ETH merge is not dissimilar to the Millennium Bug. That's sort of it's all hype, and then it was
it is exactly.
It was Web3's Millennium Bug. There you go.
It is exactly it. This was Y2K all over again. Nothing to think about. It went fine, and so congratulations to all those teams, and really to the overall Web3 asset class, because everyone that's in blockchain, even if you're a Bitcoin maxi, even if you're a Cardano, whatever they call themselves, you needed this to work. If it had failed, it was going to be really devastating in the industry. And there's a lot of roadmaps and a lot of items that Ethereum team's going to have to do, but to really, this was to get to them to the starting line of modernizing the largest chain that's out there. So with that being said, here's my guest today, Esther, and we've got a lot to talk about, and you have a very storied career in this, but so let me just go ahead and kick it over to you. A little bit of your background and kind of how you got here today.
So I am actually very relieved just on the ETH side because we are built on Polygon, which is obviously a layer 2. So we're very happy that it's all gone smoothly.
Were you up all night?
So I journey into Web3 has been, I think, sort of just the next phase of my journey in life. I started off working in and around youth issues, looking at kind of the hard edges of what happens to young people when they don't have opportunity. And I became fascinated by sort of roundabout, kind of in 2017, I was going, I really feel like I should know what blockchain is, and I'm really struggling to understand it, and it's driving me mad, and I'm probably missing out on a load of things. But then 2019 was really when I started to galvanize around what I understood as the metaverse and the sort of the potential of this kind of nascent emerging space. And I was always looking at it. I see tech not as an end in itself, but as an enabler of things in the world. And in our case, the ability to sort of be at the kind of the forefront of an alternative economic system. And kind of the way that we live, work, learn and earn over the next kind of century, it's an incredibly exciting and fascinating space to be in. So that was kind of where my interest lay in terms of what was possible. What could we actually do with this technology for the benefit of society?
And you're no stranger to kind of digital, lifestyles, to people kind of wanting to say, how do I go from this in real life thing that's, very, it's a fad that seems to be fading out. And how do I live, online? And you've done a little bit of this pre-blockchain too, as well, correct?
Yeah, so we won an Innovate UK grant in 2020, and it was to pilot the use of avatars to remove and reduce hiring bias. Because obviously, if you have a different colour skin tone to white or a different sounding name, there is both a human and algorithmic bias that occurs, in the current system. And the avatar, that kind of idea around anonymity, sort of self-sovereign data, all the things I love about Web3, it was very, very successful. And it's also incredibly good fun, so people, the one thing we find is people actually love creating their own avatar and customizing it. And, it can tell you a huge amount about a person. And it is quite interesting because even with our own team, we partner with Ready Player Me because obviously, kind of cross-platform interoperable avatars, and they're also really cool and great to work with. But the teams, it's quite interesting because originally people would like create an avatar that looks like them. And then they'd be like, okay, right, you just basically create like a digital version of yourself, and then eventually, they'll try again, and then the costumes start coming, and then the gender starts changing, and then there's all this stuff, the next thing. And I think it's a really powerful way of people being able to really, we don't have one persona in our lives. We don't, we already have a kind of a quasi digital identity, depending on which social media platform we're on. We'll put different pictures up, so I think this is kind of some of the most interesting stuff, because it's how humans, I think, become quantum, having these kind of different avatars, these different lives that you can lead, is really exciting.
No, I love that. Let's spend a second unpacking kind of that thesis in the conversation. And it really has to do around like when we talk about things that happen in real life. And that's generally where most of us live, not all of us. But most of us, encounter kind of like, this is who we are, and this is what's baked in, and this is our lifestyle. And for a long time, really since kind of the birth of Web 1, people have sought, I want, to not be me. In a variety of ways. And they do that, kind of in Web 1, the way it started with was just, anonymous usernames or random gamer tags, whatever the case was. And, as I was kind of really right there, age myself, I was born in the 70s. So I was kind of that first generation that got to touch those initial, like my first computer was an Apple II GS. Like I was right there. And so I remember the early days of like really going like, well, hold on. You mean I don't have to have my name? And I was young at the time, so it didn't really kind of hit me as hard as some others ones. But suddenly to say I can be somebody else, and I can kind of protect my in real life identity and be someone else a little bit different online. And people have done this to varying degrees over the last few decades. But now it's becoming a very different thing. Because when we start talking about, blockchain and on-chain identity, you're talking about actually owning your identity online. And I think that's very different. If you were, I'm going way back to Web 1, and it probably precursors you. But if you had your AOL username, and suddenly there's here comes Facebook, here comes a variety of other services or everything else. Like you had to go fight to make sure that you got your name on all these other services. And most of the time you couldn't unless it was a really abstract thing. So if you're, my name's Jay, J-A-Y, that's like how I spell my name. And so never in time have I ever had, my name be something, it's always Jay with like numbers or letters or anything else afterwards there. But now the core concepts of, and exactly the problem you guys are trying to solve is that there's a single identity of which I'm saying, this is who I am online. And that's going to be transferred around all these other services interoperably. And jumping back over to what you said earlier, and I need to shut up and stop talking. People can choose who they want to be. Yeah. People can choose without, being defined, what is that? What does this world mean to them?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think, you asked me a bit about my, my background, it was kind of, a large reason, why I'm so mission driven is because if you look at a young person who comes from a background like mine, single parent family, free school meals, significant disadvantage, and it's kind of going, where you come from should not define where you end up going. And it shouldn't be based on, that there is this kind of intergenerational poverty and privilege track, that occurs pretty much from day one. And it's incredibly difficult to break, and the way that you break that is with the idea that you can reinvent yourself, and I've gone from being that 16-year-old who left school, GCSEs, couldn't go to uni, went to work, window cleaning, care work, bar work, waitressing, pay the bills, to being a DJ, owning a record shop in Manchester, to coming to, being a tech founder in the metaverse, and in my later life, I'll probably be, a 90-year-old ninja, and the idea that, this sort of malleable nature of who we are, and what we can be. And I think the digital identity and the digital twin, aspect of that. It's one of the things that fascinates me the most. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, this, but the idea that there is Altered States Machine, which is one of the Web3 companies I'm just absolutely obsessed with, and Fluff World, they're looking at being able to imbue your digital twins, avatars, with AI, ML, transactional permissions. And for me, I'm going, so I could have 5 me's in the metaverse, triaging my email, sorting out my direct debits, all of these things that Web2 at the moment doesn't enable. We're sitting here, our phones are going to be pinging, there's going to be a million emails, LinkedIn notifications when we get out of here. And it's like, those are the things that I'm fascinated by, because I think that's about as quantum as a human's going to get in my lifetime. So
I've got about, I've got 13 staff members here at YWhales, and if I can replicate all of them, like, absolutely, I think that's perfect, because I'm very happy with my team. And so the idea, core concept of being able to kind of take weight off them for those menial tasks is huge. Yeah. But the other thing I think is really that gets lost so often is the concept that you just said. And it's, I grew up in kind of the MLK generation is the way I put it, which is, judge people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, meaning that however they were born is irrelevant. Yeah. Who they are in front of you today is how they should be judged. And the conversations that you can have with them is really what is important. That's not always the case, unfortunately. Some people cannot get past where someone was born, or how they were born, or how they look like they was born. And I think racism is racism. Like, it doesn't matter what color your skin is or where you were born. If you can carry a conversation on with somebody and you feel a connection with them, that's the win. That's it. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of Web3 for me, because, I'm classed as a diverse female founder, and it's kind of going in Web2, there wasn't a place for me, it's kind of, whereas in Web3, it's sort of going, oh, right, okay, yeah, this is a much more egalitarian, sort of much more diverse community. It's by no means perfect. We've got a long way to go, but it's certainly a marked improvement on what's been before. So that's one of the reasons I love it. I think as well. Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, please keep going.
No, it was just back to the point that we were talking about. I've also watched, kind of the impact of social media in its current form, in this Web2 environment on young people, that, teenage self-harm, kind of body issues, all of these things. And I'm really hopeful that the idea that you can have all of these different profiles, that you choose, it's not your analog, real self. I think there's a huge amount of good, that can come out of some of the worst excesses of kind of what the more sort of centralized Web2 platforms have created.
Yeah, and this is something you probably have never really, again, I don't know how old you are, and a lot of our listeners are sometimes younger, sometimes older, but there was a time of which you could be a stupid teenager and no one would ever know the day after. Like, there was no, like, I grew up, there was no such thing as, cell phone videos. There was no such thing as YouTube or anything else. Yeah. And it was okay just to have moments of which get forgotten. Yeah. And today it's not going to happen. We're never going to get back to that. There's, even no matter where scenario you think that you're safe, there's always a camera that's recording you. And once it's recorded, it can go anywhere. Yeah. But the concepts of which we're talking about, which means that you can absolutely be known, but not tied back to your real life persona. And you can be a little more advantageous. You can have, more in-depth conversations. And you can put a Trump supporter and a Biden supporter and people from all in the world together that traditionally cannot have a conversation together, and let them have it out. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're not the real life implications. They should not be hindered by free speech. They should not be hindered by what your thoughts are and your beliefs are. And I truly do believe in freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
It's absolutely, I think we'll look back on this as like the age of outrage, and it doesn't reflect.
Oh my God,
when you sort of go into the street and you talk to people, it's like, yeah, we've all got polarizing different opinions about everything, but actually, you just can't have those intelligent, dignified conversations anymore. It's just become a kind of a shouting match, and kind of almost amplified algorithmically, as we now know. I think the I could talk about avatars forever. We could literally spend 4 hours.
Let's go talk about avatars. So let's pivot. We've kind of preambled enough. Let's talk about Hundo, your project today, and really how it's, again, I think you clearly are very passionate about this, a lot of time, energy, effort, and you have a lot of people supporting you. So let's talk about what Hundo is, and your goal is to see this for the future of society.
Yeah, so it's just a minimum, really small goal. So I obviously, Hundo, I think, is the product of my life's work, really, and because I see for the first time the pain point that's always been young people's is now employers and everybody else's, because there's 1 billion new tech roles needed by 2030. That's 1 in 7 people on the planet, give or take. And that's not from 2030, that's by, so it's now. And for me, education systems simply cannot keep pace with the rampant acceleration, that is happening as a result of tech, the speed at which tech is, moving forward. And during COVID, there was this kind of moment for me where young people lost their jobs at 3 to 5 times the rate of every other age group. And they were already in low pay, 0 hours, they weren't getting furloughed, to bake banana bread at home. And at the same time in the hiring market, big major employers were screaming out for project managers, software developers, engineers, whatever, $150,000 a year jobs, really good entry level wages. And I found this utterly heartbreaking and very galvanizing, because it spoke to me of a complete systemic structural breakdown between education and the future of work. So, and obviously I obsess about these things, you can probably tell. And for me, it was going, you can go on about everything that's wrong forever, it doesn't change it. We wanted to build an augmented bridge, between current education and employment, so that young people have got a more coherent pathway to employability, and to paid work. So Hundo is the world's first learn and earn campus for Gen Z. So under 25s to upskill for the future of work through Web3. Obviously we're built on chain, but just what does the future of work look like? In my son's 18, my technical co-founder's son is 5. By the time he is thinking about a job, affordable mainstream space tourism will probably be a big industry, and that's one of many that we don't even know yet. That's going to happen. How do you get a generation that's always left behind ahead of the curve? And that's why we've built Hundo.
Oh, number one, I applaud you. I really do. And I can speak about this from a point of experience. And just for reference, I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. And the one's a freshman in high school and the other one's still in grade school, which I don't know the terminology for you're in London today, what that means, or it's whatever the case is. But I have to say, and both of these kids, are extremely privileged. They're in the top private schools in our town. And I couldn't be more disappointed with the education they're receiving. And I speak daily to college students. We have a very large YNG, YPO Next Generation, and these are the college students. And I hear their frustrations, that they're spending, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a year. And they're coming to Y Whales, and they're coming to people like you and us and saying, I think blockchain is going to be a thing. How do I learn about this? And I go, aren't you at Harvard? Where are you at? You're at Yale? Well, yeah, there's like a little club, and here's literally they'll send me the course content of what they're proposing. And I go, that was 5 years ago. Like, this is nothing relevant of what's needed today, and none of that's going to get you a job. And so I applaud you because it's so needed. And Web3, the one thing it can do, and it does better than any other technology I've ever seen, including Web 1 and Web 2, is interconnecting the planet. And people may say, no, I can talk to anyone in the world that I want, with Web 2 technologies today. And I argue that no, you cannot, not in the capacity that's actually needed to create real human connections, because what you have is a barrier. And you and I are talking through a type of metaverse right now, but it's 2-dimensional, and there's nothing we can do to break that barrier. If right now we bet on something and I lose that bet, it would be very hard for me to send you the money. In a quick, we'd have to download another app, go through a whole process. I can't just say, it's here. So the interconnection of what Web3 will give, and the technology of which I think you're proposing of the learn to earn type mentality is absolutely revolutionary, and is absolutely going to be the way if you want a billion students to go through your course, I don't even think that's a large number. I think that's very reasonable to say that there will be 1 billion people over the next decade that are educated through Web3 technologies. Yeah. And that's essentially, and that's our moonshot. We're going, billion roles needed by 2030. Can we get 1 billion learners on the platform in the same time? So because it's not scale for the sake of it. It's because it's necessary. There has to be a material step change in the way that young people are, being given access to learning, that actually leads to outcomes that they need. For me, it's quite
it's quite black and white. It's not a complicated concept.
Well, the world is so different today, and the world is so different tomorrow. And the one thing I love is that right on your website, you literally it's a learn and earn campus for Gen Z, and I think that the Gen Z gets a very bad rap. And I have a number of Gen Zs that work with me. One of my founding partners, Mia, I think she's on the line right now, is a Gen Zer. And, I find her to be one of the most amazing, partners and workers I've ever seen. However, if I put her into a traditional role, as I would have had in my other companies, I don't think that she would have had that level of success. And I watch how Mia works, and I see how she operates, and some of the other Gen Zers that we have as well. And it's very clear that you have to. They've grown up differently. They interact with technology differently. And if you can't, and if you as the boss can't get around that barrier, you are setting yourself up for success. And I'm sure you've seen a little bit of that, Esther.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we made a commitment, to have 50% of our workforce, Gen Z. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm 42 now. It's like, so I'm an honorary Gen Z, because my mental age is about 14. But, it's kind of going, the thing for me is going like, they're just so good to have in your business. They're so good to have in your business because they bring to life, people look at all of our socials and they're like, wow, you must have this huge marketing team. And I got like 2 18-year-olds, and a 24-year-old just like going out into the world. And it's like, it's just, you're absolutely right. They also, the thing I found really sad is, in 1997, I was 17, and it's like, it was hopeful, the future was hopeful. And now they're just bombarded 24/7 with everything that's wrong with everything. And that's, that level of powerlessness, in a generation is not a healthy thing. There is also an alternative view of the future, which is if you empower this generation with the skills, the tools, and the economic independence that they need, as a standard, as a basic, I think they'll go on to do amazing things. Why is it that the adults who created the problems think that they know how to solve them? Like, it's like, get out of the way and let these kids, fix these problems that we've left them with,
Yeah. And a lot of this is, Web3 is not for as much for you and I. Like, we will enjoy it. We will see the earliest stages of it. But Web3 is really for the Gen Z and the I'd say kind of millennials as well. They were born into a digital world. They equate their digital identity to with the same degree as their in real life identity. And that's just something that I never will. Like, I can close my computer and I can walk away from it. It's entirely fine. And if I had to delete my Facebook account today, I wouldn't even think anything of it. In fact, the Gen Zers are like, why haven't you done that already?
Yeah, not even
because I'm there. My 15-year-old son likes to call me a boomer, and I'm like, not quite, but close. And so, listen, it's a fun.
It's not an age; it's a mindset.
Yeah, it's really there. And so, constantly, it's like, Dad, you're listening to the boomer music again. It's like, this is the '90s. This is like, Soundgarden is not a boomer music. I was yelled at by my boomer parents for listening to the stuff.
You're heading into boomer territory.
Yeah. So it really is, an evolution. How do you so walk me through the process of Hundo. So you've got this and really an untapped market. And when I say untapped market, meaning that I don't believe that traditional colleges are going to survive the next few decades. I don't care if they're Ivy League. I don't care if they're the basics. I hear my son and his friends. I hear, that are getting ready to go to college saying they're not interested. I hear the people that have just gotten out of college saying they got nothing out of it and they don't have jobs because of it. So there's a clear need and niche for how do you fill this? Because education is key. Without an educated society, you will fail. So walk me through how you're going to kind of solve some of these problems.
Yeah, so not on our own, I think, is the first thing to say. So I think for us, what we kind of started looking at it from the employment side. So, essentially we have always been about reverse engineering the kind of contingent recruitment and hiring process that occurs. And so then you can start to track back, to how you start to tackle the education side. We were looking at, every young person broadly speaking, is in education until, government says you have to be, so you're in education to a particular point, 16 or 18, depending where you are in the world. And then you leave with extremely poor careers advice, if any. And then you go into, CV bombing job boards. And we've had young people, we've run tests. It's like they can CV bomb a job board, put 100, in a day and get a 0 rate response. So no one is getting a good service here. And a CV resume is giving you one snapshot data point of the totality of what a young person is capable of. It's an extremely inefficient process. So we wanted to get rid of that.
And it's rife with fraud.
Well, completely, it's not verified. I mean, you can write what you want, it's like, no one's checking, and the thing is, like, every 18-year-old CV is exactly the same. They will tell you that they are a highly motivated, hardworking individual who really want to work at your company, and all this, and it's like, they're still being advised to write cover letters when, like, HR people are like, we don't want a cover letter. So this whole, system. So we wanted to look at, okay, fine. If that's a pain point for everybody, how do we solve that pain point? And this is where, obviously, we were accepted onto Outlier Ventures Basecamp Accelerator. So that kind of literally accelerated us into the metaverse.
Love Jamie Burke and what he's been doing.
Yeah. Total legend. So I was actually on with them earlier. They're in Barcelona at the moment. They were life changing, absolutely life changing for us. We knew that avatars were a good thing. So we're like, great, okay. So how do we put all of these things together in a platform? So essentially, a young person, when they're still in education, 16 upwards at the moment, just because of child protection issues below, the age of 16, they can sign up to Hundo, create with their email. It's a very Web 2 sign up process, and create their Ready Play Me avatar, customize it, and then they can set up their wallet. Because we're trying to teach young people about the fundamental technology that underpins Web3, without them sort of really noticing, so avatars, with the fact that we're on chain, that isn't obvious, to young people. It's not like, welcome to the blockchain, so they're doing all of these, activities and behaviors, in Web3 technology. The wallet itself is, the purpose of it is a soulbound, skills NFT, wallet to replace a CV resume. So young people will be able to draw from their gaming lives, their online lives, all of the things that they've done, monetized a server in Minecraft, traded Valorant skins, led their clan in Clash of Clans to 13 leaderboard, whatever. These are all soft skill employability skills, They'll never put that on their CV. We never ever see that on their CV, but they might have miserable GCSE results or A-level results, so it's that sort of much more rich data set of like the totality of what this person is into, their interests, their passions, all of those things. And then the learning side of Hundo is we launch on the 9th and 10th of November with CareerCon. And that's basically no more boring careers fairs in sports halls, So the idea is, this year you can discover what is the future of work. What does that mean for you? What do you need to start thinking about? And then they'll be able to do kind of rapid bootcamp style masterclasses with, kind of leading like Kadeem James, kind of like immersive Dodds for AR, VR, Crystal Lake, who's like TikTok employer influencer, how to start to hustle, your way through, starting to navigate around the world of work. So that's the first thing that we will do. The platform itself is powered by a utility token called Let's Go. And the purpose of that, again, is teaching young people about how to use tokens, crypto in a safe environment where they can't get rugged and scammed and, have their wallets drained. The utility token means that they can enroll on courses. And then obviously they'll be able to kind of burn, for real world goods if they want to, so that's, and again, it's like, this is how you start to get used to all of this technology. And then obviously the skills wallet means that you have a permanent, verified, validated on-chain record of what you do, and that becomes a lifelong learning passport, in many ways. So that's what they'll be doing first.
Yeah, no, I love everything. And I love the fact that, again, we're, the last NFT kind of boom, and it was very similar to the ICO craze. It was like, just because I can make it, it should have value. And people were jumping in, didn't even know where it was. And, I have numerous projects of which I was like, this looks great. And it's at zero today because, there wasn't anything there. But the technology behind NFTs and it's really utility. Like that's like one of the utility, access, and identity. Those are kind of like the mainstays of this. The artwork and everything else is like, it's great if it's there, but it should almost be secondary to the real life, access or utility that you can get those. So I love hearing that you're already using the word soulbound. And that's a new word we'll hear quite a bit, of soulbound.
I can't take credit for it. It was my technical co-founder, and he said we came up with it before Vitalik announced it as a thing. So it was quite
good for you.
I was at NFT Crossroads in Valencia in Spain. I was speaking with Decentraland, and I was like walking down the street going, soulbound NFT skills wallet. I'm like, right, as because I'm like, a Web3 expert since, yesterday, so I was like, I hope no one in the audience asked me in depth what I just said, because I'm going to struggle.
but it also showcases how early we are. And I think that there's a lot of people that when they start kind of rummaging into the Web3 world, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, all the things that are related to that. A lot of them think they missed out, because Bitcoin is it's turned into kind of a $20,000 stable coin almost. It did hit 60 at one point, and you could buy these things. My first Bitcoin purchase was I bought 100 of them for $20. And so, I mean, it's some people think like, you had to be that early. And I don't even consider myself an OG because I didn't hold on to my threw them away. It was that early. And today I know so many people that got in 2015 and 2016 and thought, just a year or two down the road, this is going to be mainstream. And, here you are, you're one of the newer entrepreneurs into the space. And you are still early. You are still defining, right now how protocols are going to work, how people should think about the space. And I'm going to be saying that about people that join the space 2 years from now, that you're still early. This is so much larger of an asset class than people realize.
Yeah. And I think it's really important because if you want mainstream adoption, which is obviously what we're into, because that's where the scale, comes, it's kind of going, it has to work the same as your mobile banking app does today. And there has got to be protections, and a better regulatory framework, so people don't just get scammed to death, and it's kind of going, so I'm sort of going at the moment, your public wallet address is a massive line of code, is it like where I think we're at in the in the journey is almost like the AOL CDs, sort of mode.
Listen, I remember being like blown away by being able to actually type in an actual like website name. Like it was for a long time, there was sticky notes on the side of my computer with a bunch of IP addresses. And even before that, it was phone numbers of which to dial into servers to like, if you wanted to, kind of like, I'm not joking. I remember going into like the local libraries, like we have a server, like you had to dial the numbers. So, I mean, we're really seeing Web 1 recreated in Web 3. And for those of you like yourself that you remember, some of these things like I do, it's really easy to connect the dots and say, well, here's how they solved that back then. And a lot of the web, kind of the Web 3 entrepreneurs right now don't remember how this stuff worked. And so they're kind of like going about their own path. I'm like, we can just do it this way. This is how it worked the first time. And suddenly it's like, because
you're absolutely right. We sort of, the Web 2 bashing is, it's easy to do, I suppose, but it's kind of going, not everything in Web, 1 and all the various iterations is bad. It's just more going, and I don't think centralization or decentralization are the utopian panacea. Inevitably, it's always somewhere in the middle. And I think people just need to feel more, in a way, look, I feel desperately sorry for retail investors, who have put their life savings into things and lost all, that shouldn't be, that you shouldn't even be able to do that, is my view, but it unfortunately needed to happen in order to clean up the space, to really start to look at the fundamental important things that are being built, because otherwise people are just nervous about it and they're scared of it. And if they don't understand it, they fear it and then they slate it, and then you can't move forward. But it's vitally important, that we do move forward in this space and create hopefully a better ecosystem than what we have now.
Well, I completely agree. And I think part of, you're trying to educate, so many people is that for them to really understand, the cryptocurrency and blockchain is not, in a lot of cases, I'm going to say it like this, and there'll be a lot of people, I'll get a bunch of tweets and hate mail on this. It's not designed for humans. It really isn't. And so, there's some insanely successful traders out there. And I continue to say I'm not one of them, because it's a little bit too much like gambling, but the people that really do well and they do well consistently it's all AI driven. Like it is designed by, computers can manage this. The space is 24/7. I don't care how good you are at limit orders. I don't care how good you are at a variety of these things. The core concept that you can, have an AI bot that's looking at this thing 24/7, because crypto never shuts down. It never closes. It never sleeps. And these are the type of skills that a Gen Zer is going to need, because they're not going to manage a 401k portfolio by calling, some guy in an office that's once a quarter just dumping it into some random funds. They're going to want to have custody of their money, their ownership, their identity as well.
Yeah.
How do you, so what's kind of the biggest things in the space that right off the bat you guys are trying to educate people on?
So I think initially, we want the purpose of, kind of KareerCon making a big, noise about the launch is I want kind of the key stakeholders, young people, obviously, but also parents, employers, educators to come away with a better understanding of what all of this is, in a jargon-free environment, because if you want mainstream adoption, it's got to resonate. There's got to be. It's not even so much what it is. It's like, why is it? Why is it useful? How can I use it? So that's really the first bit. This year for us is all about discovery, because I think people in the space, it's so easy to forget if you love going down the rabbit hole, as I do. It's so easy to forget that you can, even if I say to someone, they ask me what I do in a bar, and I'm like, I built the world's first London campus for Gen Z to upskill in Web3, the metaverse and beyond. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, and their eyes glaze over, and then they start talking about sports and the weather, and then they slowly back away. I experience this daily.
So I think, so for me, it's like blowing that open and going what is this? Get rid of all the, the hype and the rubbish and the nonsense and all of the noise, and go this is fundamentally what we will just one day call the internet again. Let's start there, and I think. Do
you think we're actually going to call it the internet? Do you think
I don't know. I'm getting bored of is it Web 2? Is it Web 3? I refuse
to use the word meta is what I know.
So I think that was, and obviously with Facebook, rebranding, it's given, and obviously the NFT hype and then the crash, it's really sort of been, for people who weren't in the space, there is now a bit of reticence, so actually overcoming some of that. For young people, it's about discovery. What are the sectors? What are the companies? What are the roles? What are the skills that I need for those? How much can I get paid? How quickly, can I start to learn and earn? So that's really what we'll spend kind of the first 12 months. It'll be very much about getting people familiar with using the platform, using avatars, taking them into immersive environments, and really starting to have fun. Learning through play, and trial and error is really important. So that's what we'll focus on, and then behind that. We'll be working with sort of 5 to 10 key partners, employers who actually help us build the skilled course content for what I consider Web3. Web3 for me is like 3 fundamental sort of areas, like creator economy, community builders, managers, and then sort of the builders, the sort of the more deep stuff. And then the kind of the 7 fundamentals, from AI, ML, blockchain, kind of cyber, cloud, it's sort of like starting to build those out. But then it's sort of like it's just a never ending ecosystem, really, because even if you just take like esports, you take gaming, it's like all the roles. What I love is just the sheer number of things that you can do, because not every young person, there's no job for life anymore. There is no 401k pensions for, it's that thing of going you're going to have several careers throughout your career. And that's okay. And you can continue to learn and earn and advance as you go on Hundo.
Well, and here's the thing is, and I think that when they have kind of a entrepreneur like yourself that's leading the charge, you always kind of build a little stuff in the vision. And I have to say, I generally consider myself to be relatively like ADHD and OCD, and I'm on a lot of things. Your resume currently, or whatever it's called on LinkedIn, the number of current projects that you're a part of is probably one of the largest lists I've ever seen. How do you and this is a real question, because this is what the world's turning into, is I don't have a job. I have a career that I work for multiple people. I mean, really that this is, the work from home thing is going to convert, quite quickly once you have digital currency online. It can convert from this is my job So this is just the tasks that I need to get done today, and my contracts are taken care of somewhere else. But how do you manage yourself?
I am blessed with an extraordinary team. Is the actual answer. So I don't manage myself particularly well at all. But that is the joy of ADHD, isn't it? It's like 50,000 things. And I think for me, a lot of the things that I do are they're complementary and interlinked. So obviously like Global Tech Advocates, the GTA Metaverse group. Obviously, there's in the Future of Work groups, there's an absolute link with what I do. So it's kind of and I think you can become very sort of blinkered, I think, if you're just focused only on this one thing. You actually need a range of views, opinions, to constantly challenge what we're building, because we don't have all the answers. I think we've got some, big pivots, that are going to be occurring over the next 24 months while we figure all of this stuff out, and I think actually, the more sort of other things, that are kind of inspiring that I'm involved in, that I'm passionate about, it actually informs the work.
Yeah, and you said a word there that we're kind of more of a business focused podcast, and so generally we attract more entrepreneurs and business professionals. And you said the word pivot, and I think pivot in Web3 is a little bit different because there's no such thing as not pivoting. Every 6 months, the asset class, or going back from the beginning of Bitcoin's launch, every 6 months, the entire asset class kind of looks a little different, and every year it's entirely different. Meaning it's you've gone from a bear to a bull, and what we saw in this last bull run, which was fabulous, it was amazing. It really brought so many people like yourself and others, through it gave them something to do during quarantine. It showcased the technology and the use of technology. But that was all the technology from 2017, 2018, that we were going to take advantage of. And so the next bull is really everything that was born or majority will be born in the last kind of 24 months, which is what's so important and so cool in projects like Hundo and the 50 other things you're working on.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, we've kept it very agile. We haven't gone native mobile app from day one, because we're still testing. It's really important to, sort of, I think we were born out of, COVID lockdown is when we closed our first, pre-seed round. It makes you think very differently about bootstrapping your business, so it's kind of, so we kind of have quite a rigor and a discipline as entrepreneurs, startup founders, because I think because we're building something that I think is so fundamental and vital in the world. It's almost like, we don't want to blow it up. We will get in the trench and go and grind, for as long as it takes to get it done and get it done well. And you're right. I think, we chose to go on, as I said, Polygon, we've made some technical decisions that I'm really happy with. But you're absolutely right. The platform, it's the interoperability piece, the idea that we can work on multiple chains, there's a whole load of stuff, that's coming down the track on the technology side that I'm really, 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 really quite fascinated by.
Yeah. The best way I've heard it, and we describe it of all of our practices as well, is you just got to get your pieces on the chessboard ready to make a move. Like you have to be flush. You have to be, convinced of your theses and your community. You have to have a community. If you're Web3 and you're saying, well, I'm going to build the technology first and find a community later. Like I talk to these people all day long as they're trying to raise a one last round of funding because they're gone and they're done and their technology didn't attract. That's the thing, is it didn't attract things. So as you're saying, hey, I wasn't, precluded, you're kind of precluded from Web2. This is entirely different because this lends itself to an entirely different type of entrepreneur that starts with, what are you guys interested in? What do you want to build? Y Whales, we've got 1,300 members, around the world, all KYC verified. So we know exactly who they are, what they want. And then we build from there. So, and you've done the same thing, because you're going out and saying like, we're starting with a problem, we're starting with a community, and you've done that as well. There's one I want to ask you about, and it's you're a member of a DAO, or you're an ambassador for a DAO, the All-Star Women NFT Club. Just describe, I have never heard of it before. Can you describe real quick and you're an ambassador, so I feel like you should be able to do this pretty well.
Yeah, so Layla Herzl is a Gen Z fire brand. I have, people think I'm a machine, and I'm like, this girl is on a whole other level. So it's, the DAO is a community of, it's not just women, everyone, is kind of in there, and it's a supportive network. It's a community of people who, we work together, we partner on things. Layla will be doing, she'll be at CareerCon, doing masterclasses. So she's kind of, she's built a really, really strong community. And I think over kind of like the course of the next 12 months, she'll be starting to roll out, more sort of programs and, that kind of thing. But things like, crypto education, jobs, that are available, all of that. It's just a nicer way, isn't it, of working, that's what I like about DAOs. It's just a focused community of interest, with shared values, kind of shared purpose.
And it's global. By default, they're right off the brand. You are exposed to people around the world that it's based on that interest. If the name and the theses and the mission, vision, values, reside around you, you're in. You don't have to worry about, can I get access to this? You automatically do. Everyone. It doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't take an expensive computer. It doesn't take any expensive technology. Sometimes it just says, I just want to hang out. And I love that about Web3 and what you guys are doing. Esther, again, so much going on. I mean, and your vision, like I get blamed all the time for like, Jay, you have a big vision and a big goal for Web3. And thank you for making it look like I'm just standing still doing nothing and you're cruising overhead in a 747. Because this, to say you want to help, educate the next billion people in Web3 over the next few decades, it is massive. And the technology of which we have today, is actually the technology that you're going to be able to use to make this happen for billions of people around the planet and provide fair and, I never use the word equal. Equality to me is
equitable.
So I would say a very fair access around the planet to education. But gaming's still really cool too. And so
it's not a bit, if you want to change, not all of the world needs changing. This particular bit that I'm trying to solve needs changing, but that doesn't mean that it can't be engaging and fun.
It does. And so I think it's great when you have exposure into things and you're not just focused on a single project, but you're very involved with GTA. Talk a little about what you're doing with them and kind of the goals of bringing that franchise into a Web3 world.
Yeah, so Global Tech Advocates was set up by Russ Shaw, who's been an incredible mentor, and friend to me. And there's kind of 25,000 odd of us now worldwide, and growing. And it's a group of tech, industry people who genuinely want tech to actually improve the world, not kind of make it, worse. So it's a really, it's a lovely community. I head up the Netherlands chapter because I'm based in Rotterdam. And the GTA Metaverse group, obviously Global Tech Advocates Metaverse group is, again, we're sort of heavily invested in an open metaverse, cross-platform, interoperable, self-sovereign data, all of the good things, kind of like the sort of the battle royale, that's going to occur between the more centralized, and the open metaverses. And for me, it's the same thing, it's kind of going, whilst we are wanting to tackle youth unemployment through Web3, a lot of the jobs, are not Web3 jobs today, so it's sort of going, we have a huge resource in GTA. There'll be obviously at CareerCon doing a whole strand, we've got Singapore, India, Nordics, so they'll, getting that kind of global picture and global perspective of what's really going on, what are the issues that the employers are facing. And it means that we get to work on some really cool stuff, so Tech for Net Zero has been our big initiative, for the last couple of years. So we're an associated organisation for the Coldplay Music of the Spheres tour. They help support the GTA Net Zero space. We do a huge amount on ED&I in the space as well. And then obviously for me, future of work, youth unemployment is my baby.
That's amazing. So, as we kind of head towards close, right, real quick right here, my last question that comes up is, Y Whales is, we're the business group. We're the ones that are running the traditional companies all around the globe. Hiring is one of the hardest things that we have to do right now. And even for Y Whales, which is, Web3, it's very hard for us to hire and fill roles, even though we are fully decentralized. I don't care where in the world you live. As long as you got a laptop and an internet connection, you can travel anywhere. And great, get your tasks done, and we're happy. But how can we, as Y Whales, work with what you guys are doing to help say, here's what we're needing, and make sure that we're kind of facilitating in that kind of path of overemployment and well as kind of just career thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you kind of answer, that's the answer. It's actually going, engaging with us, with employers. What's interesting to me, it comes, with Y Whales and the broader audience, it's like, this is a bottom line problem now. It is costing, every business an absolute fortune, and they are not getting the results or the outcome. So something fundamentally has to change, so we don't really spend a lot of time with HR and hiring. We spend a lot of time with transformation, commercial, finance directors, kind of because they recognize that you can throw as much money as you want at a recruiter. If the talent that you need simply doesn't exist yet, you are going to have to start to think differently about creating those pathways. And it's a couple of years, it's going like we can move quickly. But fundamentally, there is, businesses can't scale without the workforce. We've seen like a fintech startup advertising $750,000 for a senior software developer. Great for the person who gets the job, utterly hopeless, for the market, because the market cannot sustain those kind of salaries, So for me, the problem that I have looked at my whole life, from the young person's perspective, the reason that I'm most excited about the here and now is because all of a sudden it's every employer's problem, and we have a solution to that problem and that pain point. So yeah, and we're more BuzzFeed than Indeed, so we're more fun to work with.
and most importantly, it sounds like you're having fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly is. It's great to hear good culture. It's great to hear, and because that's what you want to instill as you kind of move through this, is that this doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be painful. But the entire concept of play to earn, play to live, is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to grow. And I'm really excited to see what you guys do in the future. Esther, for anyone that's interested, wants to know more, wants to enroll, wants to get involved, wants to invest anyway, what's the best way to kind of get a hold of you or the team?
Yeah, so you can email the very old school way. So it's esther@hundo.xyz, and also LinkedIn is my. I'm not Gen Z, so I refuse to go on Instagram or any of the others. So you'll have to find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, unfortunately.
Fabulous. No, and that's great. And so for all the Y Whales out there, this is Esther from Hundo and 25 other things. Absolutely do check out her LinkedIn feed. Maybe one day I'll be approved as one of your networking actions, but for now I'm just a follower. And really, really, like I said, I'm excited to hear more about education. Tech, ed tech is huge in the space. And I think this is really going to solve a lot of problems that are needed today, but this is going to take years to build up this infrastructure. And, again, I hope all colleges do very well. I hope everyone that went to college can find a job. But the reality is that's not the case. And so I'm really, really excited to kind of see the future of this. And more than anything else, congratulations on all the success and all the happiness and what you do.
Thank you so much. And I'll make sure to add you as a connection straight after this.
There you go. Look, I got my end. All right, Y Whales. Hey, have a great day. Enjoy the fact that the Ethereum chain is up and running with no problems. Be good, and we'll talk to you guys soon.